This is one of those things where it goes back to, and it's like, I'd love to talk economics with people.
Right.
And everybody, like when you eventually, like you drill down the conversation and it becomes one about like, why is this worth this? And the answer is always that things are worth what people are willing to pay for them. That's basic economics. So no matter what you're talking about, the American dollar, a refrigerator, whatever, it's worth what people are willing to pay for it. That's how you assign value to things. And so now we have this situation where there's like a Trump currency, and it's like, how do you assign value to that?
Well, it's incredible. So like crypto as a whole. So basically you're talking about blockchain type thing, which means nothing to like anybody.
Yeah, it's meaningless.
Like, and it's like, if you get into the nitty gritty, yeah, sure. It's like, it's this whole thing. It's a self-terminating type deal. There'll only be X amount of this, but there's a whole process. Mining.
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
It's that, to paraphrase that, it's that because it is finite, it is therefore valuable.
Right.
Which is the basis of supply and demand. But also that's usually based off of that it does have a real value. Like it does have a value. And there's less of it, and that makes it more valuable. But in this case, we're talking about something that is not tangible.
It seems like you're just putting a price on a word.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth anything unless it's said by the right person.
To play counter argument, the American dollar is the same way.
Sure, it's fair, but it's based on a real thing, like the gold, like that gold standard.
No, it isn't based off of that. It's based off of the power of the American military.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. The American dollar has not been based off of the gold standard since 1972. Huh. It was called the Nixon shock, and he basically unpegged the dollar from the gold standard, which was something that was going to happen no matter what. But basically when he did that, it became a floating currency. And so the currency is now based off of, when you look at like an American bill, it just says based off of the full faith of the American government. So on and so forth.
It is a representation of value.
Yeah. It's like the military. Yeah. The military will go and basically, support the interests of the United States and what we take an interest in, which is our money. That's really all that it is. With cryptocurrency, regardless as to who puts their name on it, you don't have that there. So it's really just based off of whatever you base it off of. And in this case, we're talking about...
What is it based off of?
Well, that's the finite nature of it. Go ahead, please.
So when Bitcoin came out, so there's this whole thing, like the Satoshi thing, this unknown person put this by the name of Satoshi. In fact, Bitcoins were initially like
the money Banksy.
Satoshis. But like it's created most likely in Japan, as they think. And then it's this thing of like I remember like the genesis, like when I first heard about it, it's like if you have a computing machine, a computer worth its salt, you can then mine. You can run these algorithms through your computer, and it's essentially like solving complex math problems. That's how it's mining bits of Bitcoin.
So it's like the scheme of Office Space.
Elaborate.
Where they're just taking pennies out of everything that's coming in.
No, because that was just stealing.
That's skimming.
Well, isn't that what this is?
No,
it kind of sounds like stealing.
So what this person Satoshi did was basically like create an algorithm which didn't have any initial investment. So it was like something from nothing. And then within that, if people, the closer analogy would be,
it's hard. I'm
going to word this in such a way as a skeptic. So like take it with a grain of salt. But I would word it as a Ponzi scheme. It's that it requires people to invest money into it. And then the money that exists within it is money that can ultimately be harvested. And the way in which this plays out is a system by which there's an algorithm that you can uncover a code that allows you to access some of these funds. That's like the basic way to describe it.
So it's more like your eyes glaze over so hard.
So it's like, what is it? Geomining.
I don't know what that is.
Geomining?
Yeah, what is that?
I might be getting that the term incorrect, but it's where they hide treasure.
Oh, geocaching.
Geocaching, yes.
Yeah, geocaching. I mean, kind of, I guess. Yeah, it could be in that way. The bottom line is that the money doesn't exist until people put money into it.
Well, yeah, like people put this time into finding this treasure that's out there.
And
And
time can
sometimes
be
it's just,
correlated to money,
it's
yeah.
because it's all about the pursuit, not about what you find.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Because that's
listen,
kind of what this
I'm the
sounds
first
like.
to admit I'm a bit of an idiot. I know very tertiary information about this.
I know very little.
But
about
at a
that.
point, it's like it gained the ability to be a thing, and then that thing gained value.
So then, yes.
Yes.
So then let's leap past how it started,
Right.
and let's just talk about where it is. The bottom line is that if people believe that a given thing has value, in other words, you could say to somebody, it's like, "What's your car worth?" Right? What's your car worth?
Yeah.
You could say you could be like, "This is a piece of shit. It's worth like $5,000,000," right? But really, what your car is worth is what somebody is willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
So your car could be worth $5,000. It could be worth $50,000. It's worth what people are willing to pay for it. So it's the same way as it is with the dollar. This is how like inflation exists. Obviously, like a topic that we've all talked about for like 4 years now, that the dollar is worth less now because you simply don't believe
In it
that
as
it is-
much. It's
Yeah.
not as worth. It's not worth its salt.
Yeah, you see that it doesn't get you as much. You don't believe in it, and that's really what it comes down to.
But it also,
So-
isn't it about scarcity too? Because there's a
Yes.
cap limit supposedly for Bitcoin where it's like, what, 21 million? There's only going to be 21 million in the history of ever.
But they
There was
do
a
that with the
benchmark
American
that is-
dollar too. Like, yeah, there's
Well,
a
the
cap.
American-
But,
the
like,
American-
let's just keep printing it.
What I'm getting at is that cryptocurrency, at least with Bitcoin, is inherently deflationary because there's a limit. Whereas our currency, our fiat Western currency, is inherently inflationary.
Yes, you're right that it is inherently deflationary. However, it's still entirely arbitrary because what the thing is valued at in terms of its like base value, it doesn't really matter. It's all about what you can exchange it for. So it's always related back to that. In other words, whether it's deflationary or inflationary, it doesn't fundamentally matter. It only matters how it relates to these other things. What does a potato cost in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
That's what, if potatoes and Bitcoin go down at the same time, then you won't notice the difference.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore, right? That's where this like schism exists. And that's where I find myself a skeptic of Bitcoin because it's so incredibly volatile that you can't count on a potato costing 1 Bitcoin tomorrow.
But doesn't it go across the board where it's not specific to potato in this instance?
Well,
like
that's
it's,
it.
like,
Yeah, no, everything
it
is
goes
moving.
about whatever
So,
everything
yeah,
else is worth.
What you're describing is the way in which things float.
Yeah.
We call that a floating currency, right? So you've got now Bitcoin floats, the American dollar floats, the Chinese renminbi floats, etc. Potatoes do not, but but
That's why we know they're
their
witches.
their exchange in a commodity exchange where that does indeed float. It's based off of either a dollar or another type of currency. It could be whatever you want. The bottom line is that the way in which these things relate to each other, that's where we as regular people observe the difference.
Yes.
Right. And so the American dollar is stable because it's backed up by the American government and so on and so forth. And you can look at a very volatile currency. You could pull like a currency out of like the Congo, in Africa, where it could massively fluctuate. And the people who live in the Congo, Congolese people, could like all of a sudden find that a potato costs like $1 today and $10 tomorrow, a thing that typically Americans do not have to deal with because our currency is so stable.
We are afforded level of stability that a lot of parts of the world are not.
Then when you look at a cryptocurrency in general, just speaking in generalities, you see that fluctuation there, and you can see that same thing occur there. Whether it does or not, that's really a matter of the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
But the American dollar typically does not do that. While we observe, inflation, obviously, once again, as we've all felt it, et cetera, you observe that, but we're talking about inflation of 5-10% at max in certain categories. A potato went up by 10% in a year. But when you're talking about other things, like for example, if you're looking at just like the regular Bitcoin, then you'll find yourself in a situation where a potato could change price by 30% back and forth multiple times in a given year. And that's the difference fundamentally between them. And it's where that volatility exists. And it's also where that value lies, because ultimately what you're looking at when you look at value, you're also looking at that stability. You want something that you can count on, because at some point I would like to eat a potato.